Hi, my name's Elizabeth.
And I'm Justin.
And this is Late Night Review. So tonight we're going to be talking about the recent presidential mandate on the COVID vaccine. First, I'm going to start off with my understanding of COVID. My understanding is that it's not a flu. It's because if it was, it would be an influenza virus. And given that's where you get flu, influenza. Whereas a COVID virus is, it's also caused by infection, but it's actually a coronavirus, and coronaviruses have been around for some time already. Coronaviruses cause flu-like symptoms, which are very similar to just the flu. The reason why COVID-19 is called a novel virus, which sounds real like, oh, this is something, it's just because novel is new. So it's just new. It's not that we haven't ever had COVID viruses before. In the past, we have. But COVID-19, obviously, if you don't know, it's 19 because it was 2019 when it came about. Have we ever been exposed to any other coronaviruses? The answer is yes. In 1965, scientists first identified a human coronavirus, so that's specific. There have been other coronaviruses that you've probably heard of, one being MERS, which is Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome, and the other one was SARS. MERS is a more serious virus, as well as SARS, which are also respiratory viruses. SARS started also in southern China. MERS started in the Middle East in 2012. SARS was 2002. MERS was 2012. There was also the swine flu, which you might have heard of. The CDC estimates the swine flu infected more than 1 billion people in 12 months. More than 1 billion people in 12 months. Another one you might have also heard of was Ebola. That emerged in West Africa, and your survival chance of that was 50%. Versus coronavirus, which our current one, COVID-19, your survival chances are 99.9% chances of surviving it versus Ebola, which you had a 50% chance of surviving, which it still exists. It's not that it's been eradicated or anything. It still exists in the world. It emerged in West Africa in 1976. We've also seen outbreaks of it in 2012 to 2014. It's very deadly to catch.
So let's talk about what we know or think we know about the coronavirus, right? COVID-19, which is caused by this particular coronavirus. Obviously, neither one of us are saying, before we get into the weeds here, that it doesn't exist. So let's start off by talking broadly about what we know or what we've been told, so what we think we know about the coronavirus. First off, obviously, it's a thing, right? It exists.
It's real.
It's real. It is something that apparently, and according to all sources, obviously has killed multiple people, many people. It is worse than the common flu in terms of the numbers in which it infects. And according to the reports, according to the numbers in which it kills. The question, I think, is not the reality of it. It's to what extent what we have been experiencing over the past 2 years, to what extent has that been an overreaction? To what extent has that been perfectly justified? The masks, the shutting down of the world economy, and now the vaccine. Specifically, this particular vaccine, which is now being, in a way, forced on the general public. So there's the question. Let's talk about what I think is, at this point, the most pressing matter, and that is the newly stated mandate of the COVID-19 vaccine. In order for you to remain employed, if you are a federal worker in the executive branch of the government, among others, but then in general, if you work for a company who has more than 100 employees, you now have to show proof that you have had the vaccine, or you have to submit to a weekly COVID test. That's something that OSHA and the Department of Labor is going to attempt to, in the next month or so here, enforce on American citizens. So we'll just stop there and transition.
So in talks about the vaccine, the problem that I come across with is this vaccine safe? And my answer is no, it's not. Does this vaccine have side effects? Yes, it does. You're consistently told by media that it's safe, even for pregnant women, and to actually test a vaccine on a pregnant woman it's malpractice. It's not something you do. It's malicious malpractice. That's just a given. You don't test vaccines or medications on pregnant women because we don't know what's going to happen to the fetus. And I currently have heard, of course, this is the media again, saying that a lot of still babies are being born. And they're claiming it's from unvaccinated women, but we really have no way to tell if that's the truth or not. Women who are getting the stillborn babies, which are just absolutely just devastating. That's so atrocious that that's even happening to vaccinated or unvaccinated. It's just an awful thing to have happen. But setting that aside, I do remember hearing on the radio a lady coming on and saying, yes, it's completely safe for women, for pregnant women, and it's safe for the unborn baby and all this other stuff. It's so safe. You know, like I have said before, it's just the safest thing they've ever created in the world. This is the first time they've ever done it, and now it's going to be mandated because it's so safe. And another reason why I have a big problem with this is because they're the ones administering the vaccines. They don't inform you of all of these side effects. And the reason why they don't inform you of these side effects is because they're continuously, anytime anybody comes up with a side effect and you speak up about it, you're silenced. I personally know somebody who got the vaccine and was unfortunately sent to the hospital like 2 days later and had to have their appendix removed. And when she spoke up about it, she was attacked immediately and laughed at and said that had nothing to do with the vaccine. Side effects to vaccines are usually seen right after administering the vaccine. People are continuously having side effects and they're continuously being shut off. So you're being told no side effects. And yeah, there's no side effects if you don't write any of the side effects down, or every time a side effect comes up, it's shut off. In order to have a safe vaccine, you are to have open, informed consent. And are you being given open, informed consent? Absolutely not. No. You're not getting informed consent, because if you were, you'd be getting told the negative and the positives to this vaccine, and you're not. Again, if this vaccine is being made and being given, administered to abolish or to get rid of COVID-19, then they would be allowing open discussion so everybody could make an informed decision. And that's not being allowed. You are being silenced and told to shut up and just take the vaccine. And that's not informed open consent. You're told you're an anti-vaxxer. You're told you're killing people. You want to kill people. The list goes on about all the insults you have to take, because there's not free discussion on it. And you should be able to ask questions about what you're injecting into your body. Again, with the pregnant women, they're being told that it's safe for them and it's safe for their baby, but in reality, that is an absolute in-your-face, absolute lie, because as we all know, there has been no long-term study about the side effects to this vaccine because it's so new and it's just been marketed and told it's perfect. Unfortunately, because of all the controversy they've put in all the labeling about how safe it is, a lot of people are unwilling to even listen to side effects. And my question to you is, why are you willing to set all of this information aside and still get the vaccine? For one, that most people don't know this information. They haven't taken the time to research it. And if they have gotten any information, a lot of times they only get it from one news source and they're going to be told one thing. I actually talked with someone who did get the vaccine and asked them a few questions. The reason why the person told me they got the vaccine was because they work with children and they were really afraid that they would pass this to the children. I said, the children weren't the ones being affected by the coronavirus. And, how did that factor into your decision to get the vaccine, knowing it didn't affect children? And this individual said they didn't know that it didn't affect the children. Do I blame the person who got vaccinated without this information? No, I do not blame that person at all. They're doing what they think is best, what they're being told is the best thing to do. I think people go and rush to get this shot because they're fearful. And that is the number one thing, that people are fearful. And if you get people into a fearful state, they don't operate in the part of the brain that promotes logic, reasoning, and rational thinking. They're operating in the hind medulla part of the brain, and that part of the brain is designed and operates your survival. There's no reasoning or higher thinking in this part of the brain. It's all about survival. There's no rational thinking. It's just, I got to do this. I got to stay safe. I got to stay alive. And there's no rational thinking. So when you're operating in that part of the brain, those are going to be your actions. There's no rational thinking. You're not going to sit there and go, well, wait a second. You're not going to question anything because you're fearful. And the media has driven that fear and has driven it home and driven it hard. And people are so willing and full of fear that they are willing to set all of this information aside and just get this vaccine. We don't care what it does. We don't care what the long-term side effects are. It's tunnel vision of survival, survival, survival. I've taken the time to educate myself. I've taken the time to listen to both sides to see what's going on and who's saying what and where things contradict. And so now with this mandate now instated by Biden that you must get this vaccine is just absolutely absurd. And a lot of people are going to get it. And their reasons are their reasons and are none of my business. But when it becomes my business is when the government is going to tell me what's going to be injected into my body. And I'm going to tell you, no, you don't get to tell me what's injected into my body. I chose in my life not to do drugs, and I'm not going to be injecting stuff just because the president tells me I have to do it.
I just want to make sure it's out there and clear that at least I'll speak for myself, and I believe you think the same way. Again, as we stated, it's out there. COVID-19 is a thing, just like the flu is a thing, just like multiple different viruses are a thing. I actually, according to what I just heard, had someone who I went to high school with die of COVID-19 just a week ago. What do you say to that? It gave me cause for reflection and to think deeper into the things that I'm sure I'm going to share tonight, but I just cannot square one with the other. It's terrible that he passed.
Yeah, that is awful.
It's terrible. It's horrible. It's just horrible. But I can't let that simply get me in a state of fear, like you're saying, and then determine that what I need to do is go take this vaccine. Because I also have family members who are well into their late 60s and early 70s who had COVID-19, and it was nothing more than a somewhat bad flu. Not even as bad as a flu, one of them said. The point of it is that it affects different people differently, and if one person can get it and it just takes their system down to the point of death, then it's no joke. And if another person gets it who has had medical problems for many years and it doesn't even affect them to the point of what a normal flu does during the flu season, what are you to make of that? What you can't do, in my opinion, is fixate on one thing, one example of that, and then say, it's all bullshit because I know people who have had it and it hardly affected them. On the same token, I can't say, well, I know someone who's died of it, therefore it's the most horrible thing, and I better rush out and do whatever someone's telling me to do, which is, in this case, the vaccine. You cannot allow fear to cloud your judgment, and then make a decision out of that fear. That being said, you have to take the situations that come to you, the real life situations, and you have to weigh them out and then make the best choice you know how to. As I stated to multiple people since this mandate came out last Thursday. But before this mandate came out, taking the vaccine for me was a matter of research and time. And by research, I don't mean my research. I mean legitimate scientists researching this, peer-reviewed studies and articles being written and posted in reputable science magazines, which I trust 10 times more than I trust any media outlet or any media source. That's where I was at. But since this mandate came out last Thursday, the president just threw a whole another dynamic into this thought process. If it were the case that there was long-term studies and peer-reviewed articles and things of this nature detailing and giving us vivid detail concerning what this vaccine is and does over time, then I simply would have no leg to stand on. I would simply take the virus. It would be as easy for me as to take the smallpox or the polio vaccine, which obviously I have.
You're saying take the vaccine, not the virus. You said take the virus.
I'm sorry, take the vaccine.
Okay.
Well, actually, when you're taking those vaccines, you actually are taking dead virus. So you are taking the virus, but that's not what I meant to say. Hopefully you know what I'm saying. In any case, I think this deserves to be addressed soberly and somberly, because when you take into account what happened last Thursday when the president got up in front of the nation and stated that if you don't take this vaccine, you have to submit to weekly tests, which it's not the tests like that's bad. It's just the precedent that's setting. Mm-hmm. The government's telling you have to submit to weekly tests in order to remain employed at your private company, or you have to get vaccinated with one of these multiple vaccines, or else you're in danger of losing employment. The way that would come about was the president, his administration, and the various agencies under his power would enforce fines upon the company you work for, and possibly in the future maybe even personal fines on the citizen themselves. There's multiple different ways that could go, but the point is the precedent that's being set here, and I have a strong aversion to succumbing to that demand of the president. Vaccinate, weekly tests, or else.
Right.
Because he is not a dictator, and I know that's an overused term. He's not a monarch. He's not a king. He's not even part of an autocracy, one of a ruling elite. He's the popularly elected official of a democratic republic wherein you govern at the consent of the governed. And with the exception of certain things that are within the bounds of the Constitution, you're not going to require me to do the intimate act of injecting a chemical compound into my body, period. And the fact that you have to threaten me to get me to do that mm-hmm. says volumes.
Right.
And then trying to coerce me or the people by saying, well, yeah, you're healthy, but you're distributing it to others. You're killing others. Get the out of here with that.
I find that so hard to swallow, because according to the CDC...
Yes, we don't think the CDC is a bunch of bullshit. Obviously, it's politicized, but not the scientists that work for and within the CDC. The information that they distribute is politicized. They themselves, with just human limitations, of course, are not political animals, not a political beast. So the CDC should be listened to.
Okay.
But not blindly.
So if you go to the CDC's website, they do have information for you to check out there. You can investigate it yourself.
Which you should do.
But they actually have a section specifically talking about the coronavirus, and they actually do say no vaccine offers 100% protection against illness, but it does give you a better chance of fighting off the infection. Mm-hmm. So they themselves have told you, just because you get this vaccine doesn't mean it's going to be 100% chance you're going to be protected against it. And the CDC also says that experts are still working to determine how long the vaccine will actually protect you. We're even at we don't have the information to how long this is actually going to even protect you or help your body aid against the COVID-19 virus. Once you're vaccinated, you are still capable of contracting COVID-19. It doesn't prevent you from getting it. You won't show signs of being infected, and you will pass it to others.
So if I understand correctly, the vaccine, this is a different type of vaccine than actually injecting dead virus into your body so that your cells can learn how to fight it. This is mRNA, so it's a messenger vaccine, they call it, wherein your cells are instructed to create a certain protein that will block essentially the virus, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 virus from infecting your cells. So while you have it in your bloodstream, and then obviously therefore in your saliva and everything else, you won't know that you have it, as opposed to if you don't have the vaccine, you get sick and you know you need to stay away from people. Knowing that those who are vaccinated can have or do have the COVID-19 virus and can more easily pass it because they don't know they're sick and they don't know to quarantine and things like that. Is that why there's such a large push for everyone to get vaccinated? Because if we're already 80% vaccinated or approaching it, 80% of the population has the ability to have this and not know they have it. And so the 20% that don't have the vaccine are susceptible to getting it and passing from it. Is that not the case? You don't think that's why they're trying to push this so hard?
No, because this vaccine isn't being designed to eradicate. A vaccine doesn't eradicate a virus. So even if we did get 100% of the population, it's like the CDC said, you could still be carrying it. It doesn't take it away. We can all be vaccinated, but we could all still be continuously passing COVID-19, is my understanding, based off of the information I got from the CDC's website.
Right, yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that whether you have the vaccine or not, you still get it. But if you don't have the vaccine, then you'll get it and you'll be affected by it. Whereas if you have the vaccine, you'll get it, but you won't be affected by it. And so because the majority of the population has gotten the vaccine and they can have it, not know it, and still pass it, they are a risk to those who do not have the vaccine. They're saying that only 1 in 5,000 people who are vaccinated actually are hospitalized from COVID-19. Whereas if you're not vaccinated, that number obviously goes up a great deal.
So they say.
So they say, right. Assuming that what they're telling us is somewhere in the ballpark of true. So let's say that's the case. That's phenomenal. Great. It really is. The next question is, though, where does natural immunity play into this? For those who didn't get the virus, but just get it naturally and then their body built antibodies to it the natural way, why would they need to get vaccinated, and how are they once again affected by COVID-19? Obviously, this is going to vary from person to person, but in general, should someone who's had COVID-19 and built antibodies to it have to get the vaccine?
You know, I came across some information on that, and I don't have a lot of the information to give you. I read something like, they should still get it.
Okay.
So to me, I guess they're trying to say that the body's immunity to the virus isn't as good as their untested vaccine.
In fact, Dr. Fauci appears to be arguing that the system worked, and it most clearly did not.
Yeah, and this is one among a number of judgment errors that he's made. The other incredible error, and this can't be underestimated how big an error this is to discount natural immunity. This is immunity you get if you've gotten COVID and survived. There's about 40 million people officially who have gotten COVID, but when you do antibody studies to see how many people got it and didn't know they had it, there's over 100 million people now in America who have had it through natural immunity. But he wants to pay no attention to that. So if you're 15-year-old, he wants them to mask up. But if your 15-year-old had COVID a couple of months ago, he still wants them to be vaccinated. There's no sense behind that. All of the studies are now showing that if you get COVID naturally, your immunity is at least as good as a vaccine. In fact, some studies are showing it might even be better. Now, that's not an encouragement to get it. It's a deadly disease. You don't want COVID, particularly for those at risk. But it is an argument for, my goodness, we have thousands of hospital workers when there was no vaccine who risked their lives every day. I was there with them, taking care of patients as COVID was going through the roof. The ones who got COVID and survived, don't they deserve to be given the credit for having had the disease instead of saying, we're going to now fire you from the hospital unless you get vaccinated? Vaccine mandates that ignore natural immunity, ignore the science, are unscientific.
With this particular virus and this particular vaccine, you get vaccinated and you can carry it and give it and all that, whatever. The unvaccinated are no more at risk, right, to anybody else than the vaccinated. So why do the unvaccinated have to get vaccinated if those who have chosen to get the vaccine are protected from it? Because you don't eradicate it. It's not like once we hit 100%, we've eradicated it. So that's not it. Isn't it my choice whether or not I want to risk getting COVID-19? and getting a natural immunity. You don't show symptoms and you're not hospitalized as much, and you certainly don't die as easily from it.
Yes.
So they say.
So they say.
So they say. Let's just take that assumption and run with it.
Okay.
Let's say that's the case. So good. Get the vaccine. Please do. But if you don't, you should, in theory, only be hurting yourself, right?
That's what I would
so
imagine.
So why in the world do we all have to rush out to get the vaccine if it truly is protecting those who have already had it? Now, here's what I've heard on that to answer my own question, is that, well, it's because in you unvaccinated, this virus is finding its own little petri dish to start mutating into different strains of it. But if we all got vaccinated, then that wouldn't be the case. But based on how this mRNA vaccine works, I don't see how it's the case, because you still get the virus if you have the vaccine. You're just not affected by it.
Right.
So why
it's
is
still
it
mutating in you too?
That's my question. We're not virologists. And we put this out there for answers, not just to state that this is how it is, right? We want back and forth discussion here. But by my logic, as I tally this up based on what I know, you're not posing any more of a risk to society by not getting the vaccine. You can say that, well, you're taking up the hospital beds and things like that. Now we have a legitimate yes, if that is the case, where you're taking up the ICU beds and all this sort of stuff, that's a separate discussion. We can have that discussion.
I wouldn't even agree with that.
I wouldn't either.
Strain on the hospital systems, from what I understand. I don't know if Florida specifically overflowed.
It's funny because Ontario, as a kid, I was really sick and I was in emergency, literally every 4 months. And I was always treated in the hall because it was always completely full.
Wow.
And in last January, Ontario came out with this, or Toronto came out with this article, and it was like hospital ERs are at 86% capacity, right? And this was in January. And then in March, April, May, and then in December, something came out and it was like 87%. Hospitals are overflowing, and it had changed by 3%, but the public health officials had switched it into, now it's a problem, even though it had been a problem before. So
but we could have that discussion separate from the larger discussion, which is, if you're vaccinated and you're no longer at risk from me, the unvaccinated, why the push to get me vaccinated? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We're almost at herd immunity. We'll be there, whatever the hell herd immunity is. I just hear that thrown around all the time. It's supposed to be 80%. We're going to get there. Without the mandate, we'd still get there. So once we hit that, I really would want to know, what's the argument at that point?
I just feel it's never going to be enough.
Yeah, we're trying to dig in, and we're trying to pull out the why here. That's what it is. And each why that people throw at us, or a reason for the why people throw at us, it's like, yeah, but what about? And eventually, or not even eventually, but usually right off the bat, you're just told that you don't believe the science, you're an anti-vaxxer, and you just need to do it and pull together because we're all in this together. F*** yourself. No, this is a science thing.
Right.
We need to see, read, hear, and know the science behind it. And the whole just do it because everyone's doing it? No. The whole do it because I said to do it? No. Absolutely not. Here's what I think. More than likely, what's going to end up happening are people who took the vaccine are going to be fine. We're not saying that we're waiting for some zombie apocalypse now because everyone took some vaccine. But it's just the precedent being set. If this was Ebola or something that, as I've heard, 50%, you wouldn't have to tell me to take it.
Yeah.
I'd be jumping over walls to get to the place to take this. You know what I mean?
I think everybody.
And when they said raise your hand for a trial vaccine, blah, 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 I'd say, here, start shooting me up.
Yeah.
Just you tell me when you want to stop.
Right.
Because the alternative is a 50-50 chance at death.
Right.
Not sickness and recovery, as is with the COVID-19, 99% or better, but 50-50 that you're going to die. Right. So you wouldn't have to tell me to take the vaccine. So the fact that you're having to tell me to take the vaccine, like we do every freaking year with the flu vaccine, is crazy to me. Because you wouldn't have to tell me to take it.
Right.
It was that severe. Now let me.
I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
The one thing I would say though is talk to the people working in the hospitals, like the respiratory therapists, the nurses who take care of sick people, because it's not all about beds. It's like, how tired is the person taking care of the patient? If they're working like 16 extra shifts and not getting any sleep because there's so many patients, it doesn't matter how many ventilators there are if you don't have people to run them. Like, so I would just like reach out to your Canadian public health community and be like, hey, what's the scuttlebutt? Like, what's really like?
My permission to record.
Can work through a whole pandemic with no vaccine. Brave. God will forgive me. Because I'm being forced to do this.
Why are we not talking about natural immunities?
It should not be forced upon us to either vaccinate or lose our livelihood.
We do not consent!
Give us our right to say no.
Severe. Now let me just read something real quick. If you just Google COVID-19 right now, here's the real-time things that pop up
with Google.
So it says overview. The first thing is Israeli study. Booster shot lowers risk of severe COVID-19 by 20 times. Next one. Moderna releases new data on COVID-19 breakthrough cases. It says supports need for booster shots. Next. FDA says COVID-19 vaccine remains effective without boosters. So the headlines themselves, I know you can go into these articles and but the headlines themselves, one says booster shot needed, will give you 20 times better protection, or lowers risk of severe COVID-19 by 20 times. The next one says that data on COVID breakthrough cases, it says supports needs for a booster shot. And then the next one says the FDA, this is the Wall Street Journal saying this, says that COVID-19 vaccines remain effective without boosters. There's no caveat there that says, but you should get it too. I'm just saying right there, you're receiving contradictory information. I just want to roll down real quick and see what the news is that's being projected straight to you right after that. Here's CNN. 1 in every 500 U.S. residents have died of COVID-19. 1 of every 500. So we were just talking about a 50-50 shot of dying from Ebola if you were to get it, right? 50-50. So you have a 1 in 500 shot of dying from COVID-19. There's multiple variables in there. But just to go right off what's being stated, what's being projected to your eyes, off your screen, when you Google this, 1 in every 500 U.S. residents have died of COVID-19. I don't know what to think about that. I know multiple people who've had it, as we all do at this point. And now I know at least one person who has passed from it. Assuming that was the only thing that was in play there, and there wasn't something else at play there.
Right.
But who knows?
Right.
There's a lot of information out there, and I don't know what more to say about the vaccine except that if you have to mandate it, there's something going on there. There's something wrong if you have to mandate it.
Yeah, because people should be begging you to give them anything that you can possibly create to help them try to survive this.
Right.
And that's not the case. It's just not the case. And and another big thing I have a problem with, if you also go to the CDC website and you look up the deaths from flu, just our common flu we have every single year. And I actually wrote these down, so I'm going to read these out. So in 2012, there was 43,000 deaths from the flu. 2013, 38,000, 2014, 51, it goes on and on and on and on. And we have 2019, we had 22,000 deaths. 2020, take a guess at how many we had. 600. 600 deaths of the flu. When on average, we have 40 to 50,000 deaths from the flu every single year. But COVID comes around and all of a sudden, we only have 600 deaths from the flu. And a lot of people's reactions are, because people are cleaning and wearing masks, so they're stopping the transmission of flu. But if that was the case, then why is COVID continuously being passed around even with all this cleaning and all this mask wearing? I feel like that contradicts that theory that the mask is somehow doing any kind of help.
Of kids hospitalized for COVID is overcounted, and is the second shot giving young men a dangerous heart condition? I want to get into all of that with you, but let's start on the masks because this article went viral. And the title of that one, dated August 20, 2021, was "The Science of Masking Kids at School Remains Uncertain." Can you just tell us this study was that nobody paid any attention to, except for you, apparently?
The CDC published a study that was a really large study of, I think it was 169 schools in Georgia. It was something like 90,000 students. So this isn't, in like one school with 100 kids, 90,000. And what they found was that masking students, along with a number of other interventions, including HEPA filters, including distancing, including barriers, none of them had a statistically significant benefit.
And what's crazy is not about a month or a little bit more than a month after the CDC's own study of the 90,000 kids showing masks are of, looks like no benefit, they issued a mandatory mask order for kids in schools.
There is actually, you saw footage of somebody with a meter. I'll try to find that footage and then I'll insert it here if I find it.
Basically, what this gentleman is at a school board meeting, and he wants to demonstrate how that when you have a standard N95 mask on and you're breathing in and out of it all day long, how little oxygen you're getting because of the overabundance of carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide being expelled from your lungs and then just hanging out in the area where you usually get more oxygen, but you don't because you have a mask on. So in his profession, he works in confined spaces where he has to constantly have a device on him that measures how much oxygen is in the surrounding area. And when it drops below a certain amount, then this alarm goes off and you have to get out of that area immediately, not because you're going to die right away, but because it's going to start affecting your reasoning or whatever. I don't know what the standards are or why they are. But going off what he was demonstrating here in front of the school board, he has his daughter, 7-year-old girl, I think, put on her mask and then go ahead and start breathing. He turns on the instrument, and in the regular space, obviously, there's no problem. Once he inserts it into her mask, though, it starts measuring how much oxygen is between her mask and her face, and the device starts going off. It starts warning that there's not enough oxygen. So while one might argue that, well, yeah, great, this means you're not breathing in COVID-19 or whatever. Okay, all right, fine. I don't think so, but whatever. But the long-term effects, especially on children who have weaker lungs and smaller lungs and everything like that, of sitting in classrooms and things like that for 8 hours on a day, and then on the school bus on the way home, and then after school activities and all this sort of stuff of just wearing a mask all day, every day, is probably pretty significant. That's something else that should be looked at that is obvious to us and common sense, but why we step over that and just go with these statewide mandates and things of that nature.
I say again, it's because the media is continuously driving fear, and it is working. The one thing you can use to control human behavior is fear. You can get a person to do whatever you want if you put fear in them. This again, I go right back to the cases of flu. We're at an average of 40 to 50,000 deaths a year from the common flu, which you're not forced to vaccinate for. And now we have these spike in COVID cases and all these people are dying from COVID. Yeah, there's only 600 people dying from the flu. I honestly believe these cases are being reclassified from flu over to COVID in order to drive these numbers up, which in turn continues this wheel of fear.
What's the end game? So if it is the case that there's maybe that you think there is, maybe you think there isn't, but let's go both ways. If there's an intelligent push behind all of this, not saying COVID-19 isn't real and conspiracy theory all day, I'm just saying, if someone has taken this virus seen what it's doing, and then chose to exploit it and push real hard into it because they saw an opportunity for something. What would that be? Why would someone choose to do that? When I ask myself that question, for me it comes down to money and power, authority. That's what it comes down to. Why someone would exploit this virus and push fear so hard for so long to get the people to do so much that they typically wouldn't. Or was it intentionally done that way, or is someone just capitalizing on this tragedy and this disaster?
Well, there's a lot of people capitalizing, and if you make any kind of comment saying there's not, well then it's unfortunate. You haven't educated yourself to basic information. You don't even need to research.
Well, I mean, clearly,
there are people getting rich off of
this.
For
sure, absolutely. And I'm not saying that it was done for that purpose, but that's, why would it let a tragedy go to waste, as the saying goes, right?
Here's the view from a doctor's point of view.
So another view that's out there is that this is a plan for the elite to take over, given how hard this has been on poor people and jobs, that we're getting forced into vaccinations. It's being run by the government, the pharmaceutical, and the elite. It's making the rich richer. It's taking away our freedoms if we don't get the vaccine. How do you feel about that theory?
Well, I think that's a pretty bad theory because the poor are suffering the most from the virus.
I don't know if you noticed, but he inadvertently proved himself wrong with his own statement.
And then, to what extent was this put into motion when this virus was, got out or released or whatever happened? To what extent was this just capitalized on, and then the natural inclinations of humanity just took over? And being that we were an incredibly polarized time in America, which seemed to spill over the borders into many, many, many other nations around the planet, because our politics are so up front and out there and just looked at throughout the world. How much of this isn't necessarily some intelligent thing going on, but the natural inclinations of humanity and their polarization just coming out and doing the absolute worst? And by that I mean one tribe is all pro-vax, and if the media is saying it, or if they even quote a CDC article or a World Health Organization article or study or whatever, then it is gospel. That is it. And so then, because the other tribe can't stand that tribe, they're like, well, whatever they say, we're just going to go with the opposite of. So, of course, we all know to some extent that's happening. But I mean, the overall push, is that what's happening? Is that what's going on? Because let's just say Republicans and Democrats, or far left and far right, hate each other so much that when the far left grabs hold of the vaccine and makes it, part of their platform, then the far right has to come out and say no and go against everything the far left is doing.
That's not true. I mean, the FDA is not making a buck or a profit approving things inappropriately. And
why do you think there is such a bias about this drug hydroxychloroquine? I mean, it can't just be the fact that Trump talked about it in a press conference, and yet, we hear stories like yours all the time. At the same time, officials, politicians here laugh, sneer, and try and shut it down. Is there more that there's just a preference for vaccine and elimination in the community, and that's what they're aiming for? Or is there something else going on? I mean, I don't know about the medical side of it, but I do know about politics, and I find that fascinating. What is your observation?
Well, make no bones about it, hydroxychloroquine really works. It's the most widely used therapeutic to treat COVID-19 in the world, hands down. The chances that it doesn't work are calculated to be 1 in 17 billion. So it's a very useful drug. It's been on the market for 65 years. I've prescribed it for 30 years for systemic lupus, for rheumatoid arthritis. We use it to treat and prevent malaria. So it's a very safe and effective medication. India, in Greece, it's in their guidelines to use it first line. So there's no controversy over whether or not hydroxychloroquine works.
It has to be based in facts. You don't want to lie to people. In fact, there was a lot of tension during the last administration because the people in power in the federal government were trying to push the FDA to approve things faster, or drugs like hydroxychloroquine, which absolutely don't work, because they wanted to score a political win. And health should not be political.
Thank you.
So, Peter, just tell us what you think of those public health officials who have not only banned the use of hydroxychloroquine, they've also criminalized it in one state in Australia, meaning that doctors would go to jail even for prescribing it. How many lives do you think would have been saved if simply hydroxychloroquine had been an available choice for GPs to use if they decided to? How many lives would have been saved in your opinion?
Well, I had one of the first research investigation and drug applications on hydroxychloroquine in the United States. It was March 26 when I filed it with the US FDA, basically over a weekend. So I've been using hydroxychloroquine as a doctor in research and in prescription now since the onset of the pandemic. It is available in the United States, in some states, but with barriers applied. We never use it alone. Hydroxychloroquine is typically used with about 3 other drugs, and that's what I did, 3 other prescription drugs. So it's not hydroxychloroquine alone, but the package of early home treatment is estimated easily could have saved half the lives that were lost, and probably more than half, up to 80 to 90% of avoidance of the hospitalizations. So the public health impact of early home treatment is gigantic. And let me give you an example. In India, where there's a ton of COVID, but they feature early home treatment, the number of deaths per million population in India is less than 100. In the United States, where we have the best healthcare in the world, apparently, right up there with Australia, we're all spaced out. We have wonderful lifestyles in America. Our deaths per million population is 800. So India, despite people on top of each other, is doing much better.
I know lots of people who lean right who've been vaccinated.
For sure, because fear.
Probably.
Because fear.
I would say that's probably exactly what it is.
Well, I'm saying the voices on this, on the, the large voices on either side.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And a lot. It seems like even if you're anti-vax or pro-vax, we all have heard the stories of someone who's very pro-vax but won't get vaccinated, and someone who's very anti-vaccine or whatever but did, and they're just still trying to make their money by keeping up their persona of far left or far right in this particular area because, well, they can't lose viewers. I mean, all of this is taking place to some extent. Anyone who views anything knows that. But it's just to what extent is that happening? Nonetheless, what I think we know is that the virus is real. The vaccine so far seems to be doing great. It really does.
I wouldn't agree with that.
According to the stats and stuff that they're putting out there, it does. If those are true or not is a question.
I can't even go with that. Because I know too much now. Like I've researched too much to even just accept those stats.
So if the stats were something you could believe, you'd say, yeah, this is a pretty significantly good virus.
Yeah, if I hadn't done any research, sure, I would.
But looking at the stats and
delusional and believing them, yeah, definitely would.
Definitely would what?
Be believing them.
Okay.
I would say, yeah. Look at the information they've provided. Look, it's just you fool me once. Shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on me. And, in the beginning of this whole pandemic, before it even came to America, just because I am very interested in the world, I was watching this taking place overseas.
Yeah, China.
No, Italy.
Well, yeah, but at the very beginning it was China. And
Right. And before anyone had an idea of what the heck was happening, Trump had already closed it to China before. Yeah, because I think he closed it in January. He closed
travel.
He closed the travel from China in January. And so it was about February when I started watching and noticing a bunch of stuff taking place overseas. And watching all of that information, I became fearful because I was watching what was being given to me. And I became, I was wearing a mask in the store when nobody was wearing a mask. It was... People were looking at me strange, and I'm just they have no clue what's coming to America. I didn't know at the time. Thankfully, Trump had already shut down travel from China. But nevertheless, I operated off of fear at that point, and I came those holidays in the spring. I kept ourselves and our son away from our family because I was so worried about COVID transfer and everybody was going to die. I mean, just the numbers they gave. A lot of people I've come across now and asked, I'm like, do you remember the numbers that they gave in the beginning about how many people were going to die? And they're like, no. And I'm like, it was going to be a lot. It was supposed to be like in the millions, millions and millions of people were supposed to die. And they're like, oh, I never even knew that. And then it's like, it turns out it wasn't even a quarter of the number that they had projected. And then this is why I'm saying, like, I even operated off of that fear at one point when I didn't have a lot of information. Again, I was operating in that part of the brain, which was survival, like I got to do what I can to survive and keep my family alive. And through time, I had enough time to start noticing what everybody was saying, both sides, and start researching this myself and continue to research what's taking place overseas, continue to research what's taking place here in my own state and in our own country. And with more information, this coming from doctors who were in ERs, who were being told that they need to reclassify deaths as COVID. And that was a big flag for me. And then noticing that people weren't dropping dead everywhere, like you would if you had Ebola and you had a 50% chance of survival. Once I found out your survival is 99.9% chance of surviving, it just, a lot of stuff started calculating for me to where I started dialing back my fear and saying, wait a second, I need to really research this and get some information here. And so with all that's been over a year, over a year worth of research already. So for us to be where we are now at a benchmark of now you're going to be forced to vaccinate, I'm just like, I can't get on your train. It's just so absurd. It's so absurd to live in that type of fear every day and to push that kind of fear on everybody who, for one, the reason why I think a lot of times people don't know how to research, so they stay a little, I hate to use the word, but uneducated. They stay a little uneducated about what's taking place with this. Two, I think a lot of people don't have the time. They have to work, they have to do everything else they need to do, whatever, live life, and they don't have the time to follow and educate themselves on what's taking place. And when you don't have that, you end up with a society as a whole who is uneducated and in fear. And when you're in fear, you can control those people. And so you have people like myself or others who also do not want to be forced into a vaccination saying, no, you're not going to fear me into this. Like, the end. If I'm going to take my chances, I'm going to take my chances, but that's my choice.
Well
so
said.
That's why I don't go along with those stats or believe them.
So because of from the get-go, they just blew everything out of proportion. And since then, the numbers have been fudged because of, by what you've heard, people have been told to classify deaths in a certain way as COVID-19, even though they weren't. They were told to do that. So the stats are off. So everything that they're basing this now take the vaccine or else thing off is quicksand. It's not solid.
It's not for me.
So,
no, it's not.
So you're way past the point of being able to believe all that. I understand that.
I'm past it.
I understand that. That makes good sense to me. And I completely respect that opinion, to be quite honest. I don't share it all the way.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not saying you need to believe everything I believed, but it takes so long. So the same thing with me. It's like, well, how do you know this? It's like the amount of research I've had to do to get what I know in different things. It's like, it's a lot, and I can't sit here. I like to tell people, I can teach it to you, but I can't learn it for you. So you have to go out there and learn it yourself.
That makes good sense. It's complex, and you have to learn things at a certain time so that you can learn the next thing. And then
right. There's a lot that feeds into it. So then
you can finally come to your informed opinion.
Right.
And then when someone comes in and says, well, why do you think that's right? It's a huge ask for them to say something like that.
Yeah.
Let me interject this.
Okay.
At this point, one might ask, well, yeah, it's complex. What you're saying, Elizabeth, is that you want me to do my own research and all that, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort and energy. So essentially what you're wanting me to do is what others are wanting me to do, is to believe what you're telling me.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Right. That's what someone might be hearing.
Sure, it might be.
They might be hearing that. And then they might compare that to virologists who know so much more, and statisticians and all these people who are involved in taking all this information about COVID-19 in the world and putting it into a nice little neat box that we can. And then when we question them, like, well, there's no way you could know that. There's just so much that goes into what they're saying to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, fair enough. But I'm not telling you not to take a vaccine.
Right.
And neither is she. And doctors themselves aren't necessarily the ones telling you have to take the vaccine. That's not even my thing. When a doctor tells me to, I sit down and I listen. Like, well, please let me know what you know, because I respect what they have to say in general. But when a politician and the president himself talks about you will or else, now you elevated it to a different place. Now you're telling me I will do this. And I'm sorry, that's when I have to say, no, I don't think so.
Right.
In this particular instance, the president himself interjected and now put another stumbling block, so to speak, in the way of people, I think many people that were probably just like you and I, or I can speak for myself, like me, that would have had no problem taking the vaccine if this was just done in a professional, scientific way, where it was just consistent results being given to you and peer-reviewed studies, and
both sides
and longevity of study.
Yes,
we don't have longevity of study right now,
and we don't have both sides. But you saying that about doctors, there's actually a really interesting little podcast you can check out. I'll also link down below in the description box. But the girl's name is Mikhaila Peterson. She's the host of that podcast, and the specific video I'm referring to is Opposing Views, COVID, with Dr. Mercola and Dr. Kamil. One of the things that Mikhaila brings up is that depression has gone up since this whole pandemic thing, and that's a big concern for people, lockdowns and yada yada. And Dr. Kamil claims that he read an article and it actually proves that depression actually reduced during the pandemic.
Is that funny, because, in your opinion?
Well, all I know is there's a really cool article that just came out in one of the Lancet journals, and it was based on data in Massachusetts. Suicide rates were lower this year, during the pandemic, than they were the year before.
This is a doctor claiming this. If you go check out the New York Post, it actually put out an article and said, according to the New York Post, prescriptions for antidepressants rose 9.2% from 27.2 million people to 29.7 million from March of 2019 to March of 2020. So you have this doctor laughing and saying, no, depression has gone down. Here we go again. COVID's another it's a cure to the common cold. It's now a cure to the depression. And then we have, again, a contradictory source here saying, it's the New York Post saying, no, depression has gone up. Prescriptions have gone up. So according to, like you just said, these doctors are going to say, well, they know more. They know this. Well, here's a doctor telling you, no, depression's gone down. He also claims that this vaccine is just really great, and the elites want it, and Trump went and got it on the DL, is what he described.
You do see the rich kind of cutting in line, trying to get it faster, because no one wants to get sick. I mean, even Trump apparently got the vaccine on the DL. Like, he didn't announce it. He went and got inoculated.
And I just think that's just absolutely laughable. Like, we all knew Trump got the vaccine and his family. I don't know where he got this idea that it's on the DL, but in my opinion, it was him again pushing this narrative of fear, trying to get you fearful that the ones who have money are stepping ahead of the line and they're getting the vaccine. So look, you need to go get it too. And it's just more of this insanity.
Using sales tactics.
Yeah.
Look who has it, and
he got it on the DL. Like, he doesn't think it's great, but he actually got it in the DL. Like, we all knew he got it. That was Trump's choice. Just because Trump got it doesn't mean I want to go get it.
No one, who cares?
Right.
That's why it's a little funny to me when they show celebrities getting it. I mean, I know for some that is comforting. Like, oh, well, I really, really, really care about insert favorite celebrity here, and if they got it,
right,
then
Hey.
I feel a little more comfortable getting it. I understand that works, and that's cool, great, all right, cool. As long as you weren't forced to take the vaccine.
if there was a celebrity who came up and said, I'm not going to get that vaccine, what do you
Yeah.
think is going to happen to them? They're sure is not going to be praised for that.
I can't think of anybody who's come
I
out
know
and said
of
no.
one semi-celebrity, and I say the parent's a celebrity, and it's actually Tom Hanks' son.
Yeah, Tom Hanks' son did come out.
He
Like,
came out, and I don't know
Was
his
it the
name.
vaccine or was it mask?
But-
Because you thought he was going all Hollywood for a second.
Right, because
and then
he's
he
going
flipped
on.
the
He's
script.
yeah. I mean, he totally
It's
flips it.
hilarious.
He's just like, I am effing sick of this. Like, go check that clip out. What happens to him? Does he get praised for that? Like, oh, he's making his choice. No, they go and put him down and go, dude, does he not remember his parents had COVID? Like, clearly he remembers his parents have COVID, and obviously it wasn't that bad that he's at the point where, like, my own parents had COVID, and I'm not fearful of COVID, and I'm sick and tired of wearing this mask. It's not stopping the virus. Like, stop. So instead of praising him like, well, he made his decision, it's like, no, let me tear you down. And again, this is back to what I'm continuously saying here. It's not an open discussion about this vaccine. How do you feel about it, since your work's a company of over 100?
Yeah, I have no idea what's going to happen there. I mean, I assume if their hand is forced up against, whatever could take place to the company if they don't implement what the government's going to say to implement. I mean, obviously, if their hand's forced, they're gonna have to do it. So I understand that. So it then comes down to the individual choice. And so obviously I'm not going to do the vaccine get forced to do the vaccine. That's clear. So I started asking myself, am I going to submit to a weekly COVID test? And my first initial response was, no, you're not going to force me to do that. And then I kept thinking about it. And I came to a point where I'm undecided now. I'm thinking, is it that, do I want to make that big a deal about it and, resign my position over taking a weekly COVID test? And it's not the test. Like, I'm not as uncomfortable as it might be. It's the precedent. It's the precedent that's being set there.
I just thought something. I bet you.
What?
Just give me enough time, and those COVID tests will be used against you.
How?
Because they're going to come up and Biden will come up and mandate, if you've had 2 positive COVID tests in the past year, you must get the vaccine.
Yeah.
You no longer have the choice. I guarantee it'll be somehow used against you.
I don't see how anyone could hear that statement and say, you know what, she's crazy. Because last December, Biden stated himself that he doesn't have the authority for a vaccine mandate. And now here we are talking about a vaccine. I mean, what are we, 7 or 8 months away? So I don't see how someone could say, you know what, Elizabeth, let's take off the old, what do they call that, the tinfoil hat, you conspiracy theorist. That slippery slope argument has no place here. We're already there.
Oh yeah.
We're there. We're on the slope.
You know what I think too also, it's like, well, where do they figure of 100? If you have 99 workers, your company's safe.
I think it just probably came down to
fire one.
Or
Fire one.
Fire one.
Everyone will be safe.
Someone's got to
that.
take one for the team. And Bill, it's going to be you. So get on. Bill. We were all very wary of the masks, right? After long enough, we were like, we are tired of these things. And then we got a little respite from them. Because it's like, vaccine time. Yeah, masks off, And then they were like, not so quick. There's this Delta variant and mask back up. And so we got a little break. And so I think a lot of the fatigue kind of left. And I think the fatigue's starting to wear in again. Because most places in the country, you have to wear a mask still. And when you travel, you have to take a COVID test and wear a mask while you're traveling the entire time. So,
I have issues with that damn COVID test. Now that you just said that, because who just bought out the COVID test? I know
one of the companies that make it.
The one that makes the COVID test.
Yeah.
Soros and Bill Gates.
Did they now?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lucrative opportunity.
And how convenient that you're being forced to be tested at work if you don't want to get the vaccine.
And obviously, people who know what's going to be happening a couple weeks or months from now, right? You can follow the breadcrumbs.
Oh my gosh.
And they're not rich because they're stupid.
Nope.
You know, they're rich because they can follow the breadcrumbs. And they're like, the mask thing's going to have to happen again. And, you know, someone told them the president's going to mandate this. And so it's either vaccine or test. So you better start buying out whoever makes the vaccine or the test or both, because there's money to be made there. And I'm just saying that, like we were talking about earlier, this is an opportunity to let no tragedy go to waste and find a way to make money off it. It's already happening, so it's not that big a deal if I just make some money off of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I get how they think like that, but come on, like you can't, like in the middle of this thing, they're like, you know what, we're gonna just go ahead, get out of here. This is so blatant. You know, it's hiding something in plain sight, but it happens so much and so often that it's like you don't even have to hide it anymore. You just do it. It's a blurb, you know, here or there. Most people don't remember.
Nope. Or pay attention.
Or pay attention or care if they do. And I mean, just to give you an example, just 2 weeks ago we were talking about the largest blunder in military history. And where is that now? Who's talking about Afghanistan now? And I can just picture the Taliban rolling around in our Humvees, just like laughing and giggling, shooting off our rounds, you know, and we've moved on to the next thing.
There's photos of them now in all of like our military uniforms.
They're all geared up and shit. They look like operators, and it's just like,
Well, actually, they were saying they're, I don't know who it is. Someone's having, is it the media that's filming out there? They're saying they're having a hard time determining who's Taliban and who's U.S. soldier.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is no more U.S. soldier.
Well,
there, right?
now you know. This was back while they're still trying to evacuate.
While we were still pulling
everybody.
out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I couldn't write a better blunder story. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think John Grisham could write a better story than this. You know. Who are you going to get to direct this fiasco? I think we said more than enough to get kicked off every social media site. I don't know.
Okay.
I think we made the point, though, right? In the end, take the vaccine. I'm pretty certain, based off of what I've learned about it and my, you know, very, very novice understanding of virology or whatever, that we're all going to be okay. That people aren't going to fall over dead and then stand up, you know, like The Walking Dead and start killing people and eating. You know, it's like nothing like that.
So then, are you going to take it?
No, because I want to.
You just said to take it.
No. Take it if you want to.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that. You know what I mean? With the amount of stuff that we eat and get injected into our bodies just normally, I mean, I'm pretty sure this little vaccine isn't going to take down the human race. All right, it's probably just, you know, a money-making thing that stemmed from a disaster. And that's probably where we're at. What I'm saying is that if you don't really need to take the risk, then don't. Yeah, especially if you've already had it. You have natural antibodies. Those are processes working in your body that have been developing for thousands of generations, for millions of years. Okay, so if you get the virus, in this particular case, you're probably going to be okay the next go around, and then the next go around like the flu, right? Not that we're saying it's the flu. Right. I'm just saying. Because this isn't like, you know, an Ebola level thing. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. If you don't have to get it, then why get it? You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, you're talking about how the vaccination actually works. This mRNA.
It's a blocker.
I'll actually link another video in the description about how that actually was designed and how it actually works.
Yeah.
Because it's very interesting.
It is. It's brilliant, actually.
Yes.
If it works like they say it works, it's a brilliant, brilliant thing. But
there's a problem with
that. There's no free lunch. That's what I'm saying.
No. There's a problem with that perfect creation. And
give and take in this world.
The scientists actually explain it in detail on how it works.
Good.
And you should definitely check it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So once this thing is injected into you,
it's go time.
Your body does not actually, because of the way it's designed, your body never knows when to stop.
Stop making this particular protein.
And so we don't know what's going to happen to the body or what happens when the body doesn't shut itself off from stopping like this. Check it out. I'll put it in the link. It's pretty informative.
Yeah. I want to make sure that you're not left here being fearful, as we were just discussing how people use fear to get what they want, because we don't have an agenda here.
I could care less. If you go get it, you go get it, but don't come to me trying to force me into
Exactly. I guess our agenda would be you get to choose. That would be our agenda.
Okay, well, that's it, I guess. Thanks for watching. Bye.